Now, here's our first challenge. Tad, I know you can't see this, and I don't want you to look. I want to run a situation by you. Hope you can see the screen. So you got two tables here. The first table's a round table with 5 chairs around it. The second table is a long rectangle table. And this rectangle table has 8 chairs around it. So a long rectangle table. Say again, you've got a round table with 5 chairs and a long rectangle table with 8 chairs. Let's imagine hypothetically you run a business. You and your business partner are about to meet an investor. The investor will probably come with 1 or 2 advisors or employees. You know, so the investor's going to come and he might have his accountant or a partner or an employee with him. Now, we are meeting in a neutral location, like a big coffee shop, you know. Neutral location could be a WeWork space, and we get to arrive there first. Our intention here is to collaborate with the investor. We want to collaborate with the investor. Where will you sit? And where will your business partner sit?
Hi there, Adrian here, and this is a video from a Zoom session that we do. We do these Zoom sessions every Sunday, and we take questions and answers from the audience, some of our students, some of our members. We never know what questions are coming up, so I'm always excited to do these sessions, and I hope to see you at one of them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and check out the other playlists that we have. Thank you, enjoy.
So in this session, what we're moving into is psychogeography, and this is where psychology and geography dance. So as I mentioned, this session is ideal for anyone doing training, doing coaching, doing facilitating, or perhaps wanting to do more. I know some people that do yoga and they have small classes and they think they can't bring it out to bigger classes, or some people like doing small groups, but they could actually do bigger groups. And I hope today will give you a couple of insights, a couple of ideas on how you could perhaps expand your work, expand your practice, maybe take it to a corporate environment, or at least at the bare minimum, at least set up your rooms better. And better depends on your own goals. So I hope there's a couple of things in here that'll help you set up a better training room, teaching room, facilitating room, or perhaps team coaching. Now, in our past sessions, we've covered a wide variety of things. William here was just on the other week, or a couple of weeks ago now. We covered things like frequencies, energy, unconscious signals, spirituality topics, anxiety, depression, procrastination, business coaching, getting clients, and a whole heap more. I'm your trainer, you know me, 3,000 something coaching hours, still learning. Certified by the creators of NLP, did my first trainer's training 20 years ago, did my last trainer's training 11 months ago. So always learning more. But I'm doing this for a lot of our students to help them get further ahead in their practices. Too many coaches are in scarcity mode, but there's actually abundant. There is an abundance. William, weren't we just talking about clients on Wednesday, briefly?
Yeah, we were.
And William said something along the lines of, whenever you want a new client, you can just manifest it. And the next day I called him up going, I got a new client. Zero marketing, just answering the telephone when it rings. Psychogeography, right? Where psychology and geography dance. A lot of this you will know unconsciously. You will know it already, but you might not be able to put your finger on it. So what we share here is pretty common. However, it lies outside our awareness. Once we become aware of it, once we can put our finger on it, once we can describe it, we can start to utilize it and set it up even better. It affects the way we perceive and operate in the world around us, and it affects the way everyone else operates around us. When you're setting up a training room, certain little changes you can make will do a big difference for you, will be a big difference for your students. Typically, the psychogeography just happens. It typically just kind of happens, but you can plan it. And the more you plan it, the more you design it, the more you can get better outcomes. Have you guys heard of Darren Brown? Darren Brown is a phenomenal kind of stage hypnosis, NLP, manipulation kind of master. And he designs and sets up his workshops so well. He will actually sit in the audience and sit in various audience chairs and just consider the way the different aspects will affect the room. He does phenomenal things using psychogeography. And if you've ever been in rooms or homes that just feel good or just feel bad, perhaps it's just a bit of the psychological geography that's making things a bit pear-shaped. On the macro level, or on perhaps the biggest level, town planners, kings, emperors would consider psychogeography. I remember being in, I think it was Isfahan. It's an ancient capital of the Persian Empire. And in this capital, they had their government house. And right next to the government house was the key marketplace. And next to that was a school. And across from that was the women's mosque and then the men's mosque. And from that one area, they could oversee and control the country. A different example was in Transylvania, Romania. I think it was Brasov. Brasov is the name of the place. So Transylvania, where Dracula's and that's from. And in the middle of the town square, they have a massive church and a big pipe organ. I think it's the biggest pipe organ in the world. And from there, they can make noise. They can use sound, and they can send the whole town into fear. Or they can let the whole town know it's safe. Kings might want to set up their land so they look safe, but they may want to set up their land so people are happy. They might want to set up their psychogeography so people are good workers. Shopping centers. Shopping centers are a prime example today. In fact, I coached someone who worked with one of the biggest shopping center companies in Russia, and they were making super shopping centers, and they were really into making key spaces where the community could get together. So that's it on a big level. On a smaller level, you could consider a house. You could consider your dining room. Do you use a round table, a square table? What about putting tables up against walls, windows, the direction of the sun? How you allocate space, what you do with the space, all becomes the dance between the psychology and the geography. It all has a bit to play. So whether you're considering your home environment, your play spaces, your work spaces, your work offices, your meeting rooms, what we covered today, you can kind of use in all of those environments, no matter how big, how small. Some people may be aware of a personal space bubble. And if you could consider your personal space bubble, how close can people stand to you before it gets weird? Do you hug your friends or do you shake hands and lean in? This is just a rough picture I got showing the different areas, like our personal space bubble. Maybe we only let our intimate partners in. So obviously space and distance is a critical factor, but there are so many variables. Consider catching a train in India versus catching a train in Australia. If you do psychogeography in a place like India, in particularly in Mumbai, India, Mumbai being a very crowded city, it'll be different in Mumbai compared to Santa Fe. Yeah? If you do psychogeography with a bunch of Indian people in India, if you take those Indian people across to California, you might have to reconsider. There's a lot of variables at play, but there's a lot of commonalities to it as well. And then what about after a couple of drinks? Do a couple of drinks change the way we interact with each other? Does having a couple of drinks affect the distance? I think it does. And I think that music can certainly do that. It's amazing, in Australia, we'll have like a big personal space bubble. Yet you go to a music concert and all of a sudden that space bubble just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah. So the events we are at or the context changes and affects the geography. Along with all our beliefs or programmed beliefs, it's all involved, religion, demographics, all of this are variables that we need to consider. Then we have the fact that you might be looking at improving the psychogeography for a weekly event, or perhaps a very short event. Perhaps it's laying off staff or hiring people. The way you set up a room will be very different. If you're negotiating, hiring staff, laying off staff, conducting team meetings, a different setup would make all of those processes so much smoother and easier. Yet a lot of people will do all these things in the same space, in the same setting. I know a lot of people, they have their offices in their bedrooms. So they might be doing business work and sleeping work all in the same place. I know people that'll have a meeting and they'll go outside their little shop, like a cafe or an ice cream shop. They go just outside the shop, they sit at a table, they see each other eye to eye, and that's how they do their interview. I know other people who will only do interviews in a specially designed room. And they design these rooms where the interviewer is up high and the interviewee is down low. So there's a lot of things to consider about the way we set these up. And now we're going to jump in and start looking at different considerations we need to consider when setting up. Now, from here on in, we are looking at this in the context of being a trainer and facilitator. Although it's valuable if you're a manager as well, this is particularly for facilitators. So if you're setting up a room, you're setting up a training, key things to consider, I believe, is firstly, what's your current situation? What's your outcome? What's the intention behind that outcome? And what are the consequences? This might seem a bit obvious, but we really need to consider this. If you're running a training, what's the outcome you want? You want everyone to learn the subject? Great, that's a bit obvious. But do you also want them to consider you to be the expert? Do you want them to gain the confidence and believe they are the expert and empower them and enhance their state? That's what I want to do as a trainer. I want to increase and levitate them. I want to empower them. So part of my intention as a trainer, or my outcome, is to teach you guys this subject. My underlying intention is to give you more power and give the community more power to grow and to expand. In coaching terms, you might want to look up what's your present state, what's the desired state, what are the resources. And I'm here today to give you some of the resources. Now, here's our first challenge. Tad, I know you can't see this, and I don't want you to look. I want to run a situation by you. Hope you can see the screen. So you got two tables here. The first table's a round table with 5 chairs around it. The second table is a long rectangle table. And this rectangle table has 8 chairs around it. So a long rectangle table. Say again, you've got a round table with 5 chairs and a long rectangle table with 8 chairs. Let's imagine hypothetically you run a business. You and your business partner are about to meet an investor. The investor will probably come with 1 or 2 advisors or employees. You know, so the investor's going to come and he might have his accountant or a partner or an employee with him. Now, we are meeting in a neutral location, like a big coffee shop, you know. Neutral location could be a WeWork space, and we get to arrive there first. Our intention here is to collaborate with the investor. We want to collaborate with the investor. Where will you sit? And where will your business partner sit? Okay, I hope some of you guys can turn your microphones on. I'd love to hear. Where do you sit? Where do you sit your business partner? So you got a round table with 5 chairs and a rectangle one with 8.
Can I come in the rectangle one? Ideally, after you had it.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
Share after.
Okay, lovely. Well, what I would do with the long table, if it's a first meeting, I would probably sit on R8, R7, R6, and hopefully the other team sit on R2, R3, R4. It all depends how many people are there. So you're opposite each other, but sort of close enough. So you in the middle are R7, the business partner or the future business partner are R3. On the round table again, I don't think I'd actually sit down until they arrive there, and just informally chat, hello, and say, where would you like to sit, that sort of thing, really. But certainly have him probably next to me, C1, C4. And the others on the other side.
Can you give us a bit of reasoning why you did that? And you mentioned the first time you spoke about you would set across the top of the rectangle table 8, 7, 6, and you would set them up 3, 4, 5, or
yeah. So primarily, if you haven't met them before, because that gives you, you're both the same. But it all depends, where the window is and things like that, of course.
You're both
but certainly, yeah, both the same. That's the important bit. The other one, you've got to have a mutually agreeable situation, because it's not really, there's no top, there's no tail, there's no nothing. So you want to mingle between yourselves, make friends first, and then sit down, in my opinion.
Yep. And then with the round table, you could take either table, but you give an example of both. With the round table, you also said wait for them to come in.
Correct.
What's the purpose of that?
Well, because then you're not positioning. It all depends if you're Chinese, against the door and all this sort of thing. About the culture of the business people coming, but also I think it's more friendly, because the round table is more inclusive. You know,
More
I'll give you an
friendly, more
example.
inclusive.
You've got it. Yeah, basically. But it's got to be mutually acceptable with both parties.
And what was that about the doors?
Oh well, if you're paying for it, you should opposite the door in China, and I wouldn't want to sit next to the door. You know what I mean? So you know, if in China it's easy. Where the door is, you sit if you're paying for it. You know, sit opposite to it. But in Western culture, different.
Tad, well, you're still.
I don't know. Maybe my connection is bad.
It's clear now. Where do you think you might sit? Would you prefer sitting around the round table or a rectangle table, any particular place, considering you want to collaborate?
Yeah, well, for the first meeting, I would use the rectangular table. And then after that, when we go for dinner, we sit around round table.
Is that so you can jump up and start dancing on the table later? Or now, Tad, what's the reason for changing tables later? And there's no right or wrong here, just curious.
Yeah, well, the first one is more for business related. And the other one is to get to know better each other.
Yeah, wonderful. Purnima, I'll ask you in a second. Bill, while you got your camera on there, what do you think, Bill? Where would you be putting you and your partner, and why?
It depends on it's just a coffee or tea meeting or a dinner or lunch meeting. Usually in China, if it's a dinner or lunch, we need eat together. We have some culture how to select the table. If it's just a Carol meeting, like a coffee meeting, it's more also Carol. Usually for me, if it's lunch or dinner, I arrange the lunch or dinner to treat the investor and his assistant. I sit the round table, the C4, because I need to pay. And my partner sits C3.
Your partner sits there, so there's a gap between you and your partner.
Yeah, it's a gap. Yeah. This is Chinese culture. Yeah.
Now, if I come to business with you, I'll be like, what's going on here?
Yeah, we call the C4 is the ownership chair, and C3 is associate ownership seat.
Yeah, excellent, mate. That's exactly why we're having this discussion here today, and I appreciate getting different backgrounds as well, because William, Tad, yourself, and I, we're all from different countries, so great to hear that. Now, I shared this with one of my clients, and her answer was very different, but she works in negotiations. And she said, I'll tell you what I'll do if I was negotiating. And I'm not sure if I should share this, but I'm going to do it anyway, because no one has a clue what company. So what they do when they're negotiating is they set it up so that the other people feel smaller. They set it up so that when they're negotiating, they have a representative right by the door outside. And at some point in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, they always call up the representative and ask for whatever. And straight away, the representative runs in there to show support. They set up the room to make themselves look powerful and efficient. And sadly, they also do it to make the other person that they're negotiating with feel a lack of power. I didn't hear it from her, but I've even heard of people changing seats where they will have soft, comfortable seats for themselves, but a hard chair, maybe a wooden chair with no padding for the other person. But this is just stuff to be more aware of. Also the why. And don't be surprised. Maybe one day you'll go into a meeting. Maybe one day you'll go in very collaborative, but perhaps they might try to set this up on you. And if you're aware of it, that gives you the ability to relax. Because if you're going to do a meeting with someone and they need to do a power play like this, then once you know it, you can rest and be more confident in yourself. If they need to do a power play over you, you must be a pretty damn good person. That's what I think anyway. A couple of key things come out of there is the authority. You know, where do you and where do they want the authority to be? Do you want to be the authority, or do you want them to be the authority? Or do you want shared collaborative authority? Focus. Do we want them focusing on us? Do we want them focusing on the whiteboard? Do we want them focusing on the screen? Do we want them focusing on one thing, or do we want them focused on everything? Do we want to have them focus on their individual needs, their individual wants, or the team? And then, of course, we're going to have some personalities. So when we're setting up rooms, we may have specific personalities, like the investor may be a pain in the ass. Yeah, or we may have the investor who's a very friendly guy, but he may bring his accountant, and his accountant is a tricky personality or a mismatcher. We might want to put them away to the distance. If we're setting up a training room, where do we want the authority to be? With us? With the screen we use, if we use a screen? Or do we want the authority to be back on them? So what do you want, and how do you want to set it up? And then after that, we've got a whole bag of things to consider. Now I'm just going to stop this for a second, check the chat. Thoughts so far, are we on track? A question there, what is the purpose of making someone feel small in the long run? Very good question. That's exactly why we need to consider what's our outcome and what's our intention. Sometimes they're different, like looking at the short, sometimes looking at the long. Some companies like this one I mentioned before, multinational company, their multinational goal is to suck as much as they can. It's shareholder profit is number one, not the people. So they want to extract as much juice as they can from people, and ideally, small business, multinational, what the multinational wants to do is generally eat you and get as much value as they can. They're not going to give away money. They want to extract value. And even though a lot of small businesses will fail because they get sucked up or squeezed too much by big multinationals, but the multinationals can do that, and they do it over and over and over again. It's not very ethical, but that's the way a lot of them work. Here are a few more things to be aware of. Distance between people, distance between whiteboards, distance between the doors, the height. What happens when you're looking down on people? What happens if those people are seated in low chairs and you're seated in a high chair? When you're setting up a training room, what about the heights? Because if people are sitting down, you're automatically higher than them. What about starting on a low seat and then moving to a high chair halfway through? The directions, the angles, barriers. A lot of people will actually speak and they'll have a barrier, perhaps a wooden desk or what do you call it, one of those high pedestal things they hide behind. It actually can become a barrier. Sequence, as I mentioned, you might want to start with one kind of setting and then change it. if you're having a particular training room, maybe you want to be the authority for the start. Maybe at the start, you want to set it up so you're the authority, and midway through, you change the training environment, move the chairs around, move the chairs out, move people into circles. And then at the very end, maybe go back to the original shape. What's the sequence? Do you want to change things as you go along? Values. What do the people value? What do you value? You know, people might value comfortable seats, or they might value long-term friendship. And if you are running business or as a teacher trainer and you want to have a long-term friendship, then you might want to have more eye to eye. Maybe, maybe not. What do the people believe? Some people with different customs will believe it's rude to squeeze people together. In other customs, they'll feel quite comfortable. They'll be quite capable of operating in small groups. They'll be quite capable of operating in confined spaces. Some people are really capable of working in teams. Some people not. What about sounds? Technically, it's outside psychogeography, but what about sounds? Background noise, interference, and aesthetics. Is there anything missing here? What about co-trainers? What if there's someone else? So here's a big thing, and this will be clear. Most of you guys will feel this straight away. How do these two rooms feel different to you? A and B, how does it feel different?
Can I come in there, Adrian?
Yes, please.
I've had direct experience of a similar situation to this many, many years ago when I was in the, let's say, charitable sort of, you know, political world many years ago. And I was the instigator of an action group for a town in my area. And what I did was, in your B thing, I sat the same level with everyone, and I get everyone like in a cone shape, like in a spaceship around, and we're all the same. And do you know that activated everyone's interacted with each other, and it was a fabulous win-win because everyone was the same, everyone was encouraged, everyone felt not challenged.
Everyone was the
Wonderful.
same, everyone was encouraged.
Yeah, and everyone was enthused, if that makes sense.
Everyone is enthused. Yep.
Yeah. So B, a variation of B has worked incredibly well for me many years ago, that's for sure.
Yet a lot of people aren't taught this. When I was in the army, we used to have lines like A. You know, we would have long lines of people. And people weren't motivated. This is like physical training or marching, you know. Would have them in long lines. Yeah. But when it came to the teamwork and getting people motivated, you know, we'd break up into groups, we'd get people like B, we'll get them around. And with that round, they can see each other's facial reactions. So when the red leader there, when the red leader shares something or they see it on the screen, they can see each other. They can just very, very briefly look left and right and see everyone's face. It gets everyone collaborating far more. That's a real simple switch. If you take it further to level 3 there, what do you think about level 3 or level 4? Anyone like to add in what the effects are for 3 and 4? Just come off mute and shout it out if you like.
Well, level 3 to me is like a therapy group.
Level 3 is like a therapy group, and the head therapist is in there with them. I'm one of you. So level 3, the leader, the red leader, is one of them. I'm one of you. But then in level 4 there, the red leader steps out and he's not. It's like, you guys are the Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm out here. Now, if you consider the sequence, you might actually want to have a sequence and use all of these. Maybe one, you're getting the team together and you're pointing. Let's say a business context here, business environment. Picture one, the red leader is pointing to profits. Company profits are low. You guys aren't going to like this, but we're going to lose our jobs if we don't fix this.
Adrian, can I come in a little bit on this one?
Yeah, mate, yeah.
In adult education, and going back to my studies of attaining a degree, in training, most of these scenarios are used depending upon the outcomes that you're planning for. And it was interesting when you showed that the red one sitting in the circle, how William came up a therapy group, but it's actually cooperative learning. So if we use the way of doing it, it's a different learning concept where you're not setting yourself up as the professional with all the knowledge. It's about utilizing the resources of the group. So depending on what your outcome is, that one. The first one is what's called traditional learning concept, where the expert's out the front and teaching like kids in a classroom. And that's great for introduction to some things. Sitting people in a circle or a semicircle where they can all see each other is about peer learning. So when you're guiding out the front, you're also able to use peer knowledge. So it's about how the people interact with each other. But interestingly, the last one, having a circle and standing outside, is not a model of any adult educational concept that I have dealt with. So interesting. The other three have certain outcome concepts that you look, whereas the last one, I'd look at maybe that's more a therapy group, but they are all within what's called educational concepts of outcomes.
That's right, man. That's right. Now, what if you were to use one, point out to people that the company's about to go bust, then move a little bit, invite someone closer, so or move them around a little bit so you get more of a curve like number 2. Then move, I'm saying move from 1 to 2. Have them discuss what's on the board a bit. Now, take the board away, get them in a circle. Now, get them in number 3. You're in the circle with them. And then number 4, you step out of the circle. And let's say level 1, you're getting the why, you're getting them buying in. Level 2, you start getting them cooperating. Level 3, you get them forming and storming as a team. And then level 4, you can step out and they have their mission and they're ready to do the mission without you. So just something to point out there is sequencing. You might want to go through a couple of different layouts or adjust the room as you go. Now, here's a new challenge for you. What if you have a 2IC or a co-facilitator? A co-facilitator. So if I was a trainer and William was backing me up and we were live, right, in Bali, hint, hint, you know, if you take scene 1, head trainers out the front, and I've got the co-facilitator at the back, what would happen there with number 1 with the co-facilitator back there at the back? Kind of out of sight, out of mind. People may be curious, why is that guy blue? Why is that blue facilitator back there? Is he keeping an eye on us? It's almost like that blue person is breathing down our neck. But number 2 there, the blue co-facilitator joins in, and he's part of them, part of the team. Number 3 there, the co-facilitator is standing behind the leader, backing him up, giving him support. And level 4 there, it appears that the red and the blue might be equal. What do you guys think about this? And how do you work it when you have a facilitator, a co-facilitator, sorry, or a co-partner? What do you do when you got 2 teachers or 2 trainers? I'll typically set it up more like number 4. And if I have 3 or 4 trainers, sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 trainers, I'll use it differently again. I don't know why, but I had this thought today. I was doing some meditation, and God bless some lucky experiences we had. I remember when I was in the army, and my boss, high warrant officer, he gave me training to do. And he's like, Adrian, you got to provide training for the officers on how to use communications equipment. And I want you to do this tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Can you do it? We always say yes in the army. Yes, boss. So the next morning I had to organize this training around a table for all these officers. And what I mean by officers, it was like I was down here and they were up there. They were all far senior to me, much more experienced, much higher paid, high-level officers, and I had to organize a training for them. I didn't know what I was doing. Just did it. I just did it. Got all the officers together, got them around a table. I let them go as a round thing. I didn't know what on earth I was doing. It just happened. 2 months later, the teacher asked me again, or the warrant officer, RSM, he asked me again. He said, Adrian, can you lead physical training, PT? Can you lead PT training tomorrow morning? Okay, I can lead PT training. Physical fitness training. How many guys do you think we normally train when we're doing physical training in the army? Maybe 20 people, maybe 30 people? I've done that plenty of times. But then the RSM said, okay. By the way, it's for everybody, including the Americans. The training I was running the next morning wasn't for 30 people. It was like 300 people. And just like that, the next day I had to run training, a 1 hour long training session for 300 people, Australians and Americans. Holy shit. I didn't know what to do. I freaked out that night, but I just got the job done. And from that, I had like me out the front, and in front, I had like 9 other fitness people. I got the other fitness people, the other fit freaks out the front. So I had like me, I had like 9 people, and behind them, 291 people behind there. And we did this big thing, and I used the 9 people. So by using the 9 people, they related to their people. So we were able to do, big 300 people training activity. You don't know what you're going to have to do, so you have to believe in yourself. Just relax and give it a go. But I trust when this happens, when you have to give it a go, what you want to do is you want to stand somewhere else and look at the room. Don't make a decision. Don't think. Just give yourself maybe 2 minutes and then go somewhere else in the room. Go somewhere else in the room and just wait. Again, it's not so much thinking. Give it about 2 minutes and then maybe move somewhere else. Give it a couple of minutes. This is one of the keys for good camping. If you're ever camping in nature, you find that what you think is the best spot and you go there and you just sit in silence for 2 or 3 minutes. Because when you give it 2-3 minutes, it allows you to slow down. It allows you to notice things. You start to notice more the height differences, maybe the wind, maybe the breeze, maybe the air conditioning, maybe some noise, maybe some bright light coming through at an angle. You start to consider on a deeper level how changing things will work. Keep in mind, do you want the people to collaborate? Do you want the focus to be on the team? Do you want the focus to be on the individual? Or do you want the focus to be on the wall? Keep in mind where you want attention, where you want the authority, what's your intention, what are the outcomes you're going for. When we do our training in Bali, we'll be using a lot of number 4 here. Oh, time for another exercise. I'm going to break everyone up into 2 rooms. Everyone okay? We're going to do an activity. We're going to break it into 2 rooms. William, can you figure out the rooms? Yeah. Exercise 2. This time we've got the same tables, but the intention is different. This time you're meeting an investor and your intention here is to force or coerce the investor to some terms they may not really like. This time you need authority and power. Where will you sit? Where will you sit your business partner and why? So this time when you meet the investor, you want to keep the authority and the power, yeah? You need to put a bit of pressure on the investor, maybe pressure for more money, maybe pressure for more time. This time you got to put more pressure on. How are you going to do it? So if you find yourself in a situation where, let's say you're going to be in a situation like James doing these teacher meetings and you're not quite sure what to do, what do? Give it a few minutes, jump in different chairs, jump in different positions, adjust, sit in each position, maybe give it a couple of minutes. Hop into a different position, repeat. You do that in a few different positions and that will expand the information you have. You'll probably go into a business meeting with specific information that you already know. But if you jump in the different seats, try some different layouts, try a couple of things, even if you do the whole thing in your imagination, which is a big ask these days. If I'm going to do a big event, I'll have numerous days and nights clear beforehand so that in the days and nights beforehand, I can mentally rehearse. The more we mentally rehearse, the more we get success. Now, a little brief thing for you guys, a possible solution here for a power play. And I'll be honest, I was watching, it's a rare thing, I was watching a TV show and I saw this power play in the TV show and I'm like, ooh, that's good. And what they did in the TV show, they put the billionaire investor in R1 and his support person in R2. And then the mayor came. The mayor came to meet the billionaire and they set it up so that the mayor came and sat in R8. So the billionaire and the mayor sat right next to each other and the support person in R2. Now the mayor brought 3 other people. Where do those 3 other people sit? Over there. They had to sit away. So because the mayor was in R8, he had to look to R1 and R2. His support people were over there. He was disempowered by the setup. In fact, in the TV show, the mayor came over and there was just a split second where you saw the mayor go, "Oh, this is a power play." And the mayor sat down and he just kind of shrunk a bit. You know, the billionaire set him up. So that was a TV show by the name of Billions. It's got 5 seasons. It's taken me 3 or 4 years to watch it. I don't watch much TV like that. A couple more slides to share with you before we wrap up. A couple more different things. Slide 1 here. This could be one way you could train. Notice the way that people are lined up. Now, if you go to 2, in number 2, there's a split down the middle. What does that do? Well, I imagine scene 1 are all individuals. Scene 2, you're going to get 6 pairs. Scene 3 there, you're back to individuals, but not just individuals, they're actually separate from each other. So step 3, you're going to get the most individuality. 1, you might get a group, but a bit disorganized. 2, you've got pairs. Group 4 there, you've got the desks at the angle. And you could imagine how that might play out. Just different possibilities. Now, what about this one? The only thing we've really moved here is the whiteboard is further away. So between A and B, where's the focus? Well, A's probably got more focus on the whiteboard. B has a more focus on the trainer. The whiteboard's there, but it's back there, like my whiteboard. My whiteboard's way back there. I could turn my whiteboard around. But you know, my whiteboard's way back there. So the attention is on me, not on the whiteboard back there. Distance, in effect. This is my last training room I was in, and it gave the trainer the ability to walk in the middle. It gave the trainer the ability to walk in the middle, which you rarely did. Now, I just want you to consider this for a second, particularly James, Jennifer, William, anyone that's doing coaching and training. Anyone that's doing coaching and training, just a quick one. What's your ideal training coaching room? How many people? Co-facilitators, props, preparation. If you can, just really quickly write this down. Really quickly write down your answers. If you're going to lead a class, whatever type of class is relevant for you and only what's relevant for you, the size of your class, the number of people, are you by yourself? Do you have a co-facilitator? Are there props? Is there preparation? Personally, my optimal is about 10 people. If I have a co-facilitator, 12 people, no props, no preparation on the fly. Depending on the intention. Now, the reason I got you to write that down is I want you to consider, what if you had new training? What if you had new training? And now we're going to do a little quick 5-minute sales pitch. May I just quickly introduce you to something? I'm just going to briefly share something here because we're coming close to the wrapping up.
Boom! You made it here! Good on you. Make sure you click the subscribe button below and check out the playlist at the end. If you'd like to come along to our Sunday sessions where we host a live free Q&A for our students and members, you're welcome. I'll see you there.